everyone. Welcome to the Cursing Christian. Before I get started, I just want to ask everybody to please subscribe. Please turn on your notifications. That way you know when I'm putting new videos because I'm still not on a full schedule. And please also click that like button. Today's video, I'm going to talk to you about how I chose my kids' names. In naming all my children's names, I went completely OCD with it. All of their names I wanted to end the same way. So once I chose the first name, it kind of followed into play. We have INs, YNs, or LINs for the girls. I did not want any vowels for first letters. So I didn't want like Aiden for a boy or anything with a vowel. Middle names, I didn't want anything with a vowel. Just because I didn't want it to basically make a word given our last name. So that was the main thing. I also wanted some sort of connection to family in some way. Most of the names that I had chosen have some sort of family connection in some way or another. So that was my quote-unquote rules for the naming of my children. Starting from my oldest, Colton Chad. My first child, I wanted to name after my grandmother. Her name is Madeline, which I will use later on. So that would have been his name if he was a girl. I also knew my first daughter was going to be named Madeline. So didn't know what I was going to do for a boy's name at first. So looking through the baby name book, I had come across a name that said from the coal town. And the name for that was Colton. Now, my grandmother was born and raised in Kentucky, West Virginia, the Appalachian coal mining. Coal mining is a very big part of that branch of my family. So I was like, you know what? This is perfect. It honors my grandmother, where she was from. It honors that part of my family, the coal miners, everything else. Now, the technical way of spelling, and I've cursed all three of my children with odd spellings of their names, was Colton. And anytime I looked at the Ton, I just kept thinking ton and like weighs a lot. And I just didn't like that part of the name. Around that time also, on General Hospital, there was an actor playing Nicholas Cassadine. His name was Colton Scott, and he spelled it Coltin. I was like, you know what? Colton, I like it. Perfect. It looks great. His middle name, Chad, is after my father. My father's name is Charles, and in the phone book, Charles was always abbreviated CHAS. If I was a boy, my parents were naming me Chad, kind of in honor of my father. Similar to Charles, not Charles, but close enough. So that is how he was given his name. So he is named after my grandmother and that whole section of my grandmother's family, the coal miners, as well as being named after my dad. So 6 years after having Colton, I had my little girl and was able to name her after my grandmother. My grandmother spells her name Madeline, but when I looked at it, it just looked like Madeline, and I didn't like how that looked. Also, a lot of people spell Madeline Madelyn, and to me, that looked like Madeline. So I chose to just put the I in between the D and the L, so Madeline. Her middle name, Leanne, originally it was going to be Julianne because her father's mother, her name was Julie. But anytime I saw Julianne, I just thought of like Julianne fries, Julianne cuts. It just made me think of like food. So his mother's middle name was Lee. My mother's middle name is Anne. Since I don't want to do the vowels for the middle name, I didn't want to do Ann Lee, so we decided on Leanne, and I just kept with the actual spelling of their middle names instead of doing the Leigh, which I kind of like better, but I was like, you know what, we're honoring them. Let's keep it with the spelling of the names. Now, Madeline, if she was a boy, I had told her father that he could name the child if it was a boy, but he had to follow my parameters of he had to end in the IN and all the other stuff. So if Madeline was a boy, her name would have been Landon, and it was the same thing for the next one. That was his boy name that he had picked out, was Landon. I didn't mind the name because at the time Walk to Remember was out, and I always liked that character Landon. So it wasn't really like a family name, but it still went with the theme, still liked the name. So she was a girl, so she is is my, I should say, not our, she's my Madeline Leanne. So lastly, we have the baby of the three, my daughter Jocelyn Clarice. Now, she was a little bit of a harder one to name, just to keep with my theme. My original name for her was Jamie Lynn, which her father's father, his middle name was James. So I was like, okay, we'll honor him in some way. But showing the name Jamie Lynn, I was just like, automatically people are going to just go right for Jamie. It's never going to be Jamie Lynn. Also, oddly, around that time, Jamie Lynn Spears had a baby, and I think she named her baby Madeline. And I was like, I'm not really that much of a Spears family thing, so I don't want like my Madeline and then the Jamie Lynn. So I opted out of Jamie Lynn. So I went through all the names that ended with Lyn, and on General Hospital, we're back to General Hospital from Colton, there is, I believe she's still on, I haven't watched it in a while, there's a character, Jocelyn, which is, I think her name is spelled Josslyn or something. But I was like, okay, I like that. Jocelyn, it goes with the whole theme of everything. But I had to stick with the spelling way that I did for Madeline, so I did not spell her name the traditional let's buy a keychain way, which is usually Jocelyn. So we did the Josilyn to kind of copy with her sister. So that is how she was Jocelyn. And it's funny now that I didn't want to name her Jamie Lynn because I didn't want her to be called Jamie, but I tend to call her Jossie all the time. And other people do, but that's more like if I need to get her real quick, I'll call her Jossie. Madeline, she goes by Maddie at school with her friends, everything else. But I very seldom even call her Maddie. She's just Madeline. And Jocelyn is usually Jossie. For her middle name, now Jocelyn is my birthday baby. Her and I share the same birthday. I wasn't sure what to do for her middle name. And I was like, you know what? I was like, everybody else is getting honored in some sort of way. Why am I not getting honored? So her and I share a middle name. My middle name is spelled with a C. Her middle name is spelled with a K. Only because I didn't want, because Colton has C's in his name and Jocelyn would have had a C in her name. I didn't want Madeline to be the only one without a C in her name. I know it is odd and strange, but it was my weird way of thinking. So her name is spelled with a K. My father got my middle name because he was at a bar one time, was watching, I guess, like at the bar TV. You know, back then they didn't have many channels. Another World was on, and there was a character on Another World named Clarice. That is where he got my middle name. So I refer to Jocelyn as my soap opera baby because she was named after a character on General Hospital and technically also through me, a character on Another World. So she is the little soap opera baby. Not too much family influence there except for the middle name after me. But, you know, you can have it all. And I love soap operas. My mom watches them all the time. We used to watch them together. So I guess we could tie that in some way to her name. So thank you all so much for watching and seeing how crazy I am when it came to naming my children and how they got their names and the meanings behind it for me. Please hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications so you know every time I put a video on. Also, click that like button, and I will see you on my next video. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.